Welcome. We have been discussing the solar system till now. Let us take a look at the picture of the sun. Now, the sun we know is made up of mainly hydrogen and helium, and when you try to make a model for the sun or any star for that matter, also in a variety of other astrophysical systems, it is very convenient to think of the material that makes up the sun as a fluid. And today we are going to discuss the laws that govern the motion of fluids. This is called fluid mechanics. So, we are going to take a very brief look at fluid mechanics. Here we think of the constituent as a continuum. We know very well that the constituents are actually atoms, and in this case the atoms are ionized. So, it is a plasma, it is a gaseous plasma. So, ions and electrons separated, but for many purposes it is adequate and very convenient to think of this as a continuous media. So, if you consider a small part, a small volume of that continuous media, the properties of this material are then fully described by telling the amount of matter in this small volume, which is the density rho. That is the mass density, and the velocity of this entire fluid element, which we shall denote by V. So, V, the pressure at this fluid element P, and also maybe the temperature of this fluid element. So, in this picture the entire collection of atoms that make up the sun is thought of as a continuous media which is at every point which is described by a density, velocity, pressure, temperature, such macroscopic. So, this is a macroscopic picture essentially, and these are all macroscopic quantities. So, this is a very convenient way for describing the constituents of many astrophysical systems, not only the sun, a variety of astrophysical systems, which is why we shall invest a little time in studying the mechanics that govern the such fluids. Now, for most gases and for most materials, the density, the pressure and temperature are not independent, they are related through the equation of state. So, many of these, some of these quantities that we are dealing with may not be all independent, they may be related through what is called an equation of state. So, for an ideal gas we know that PV is N kBT, right. So, the volume is related to the density, and you have a relation between these three. So, this has to be kept in mind. This is the first thing. So, the first thing that we have to note is that we are going to a macroscopic description of the material that makes up astrophysical objects. The second point is that there are two types of such descriptions that one can adopt. So, these two types are called the Eulerian approach and the other one is called the Eulerian approach, the other one is called the Lagrangian approach. So, you can have two approaches to fluid mechanics, the Eulerian approach and the Lagrangian approach. Let me explain what the Eulerian approach is. In the Eulerian approach, we you can think of the Eulerian approach as like this. You have a coordinate system in space and you sit at a fixed coordinate point. So, let us say that you sit here at this coordinate point and you study the properties of the fluid material at this fixed point in space as a function of time. So, you sit here and the fluid may be flowing. The fluid after all is it's something that can flow. So, the fluid may be flowing. Just imagine there is a wind blowing over here in this region of space or there is water flowing through this region of space. In the Eulerian approach, you sit at a fixed position and see how things change as they move across this point. So, if you look at, for example, if you consider the density, then you would have density as a function of r and t, and you would sit at a fixed r and observe how the density changes. So, at every instant of time a different bit of the matter will be at your position. That is the Eulerian approach. We shall come to the Lagrangian approach a little later. With this background, let us now try to see what are the laws that govern the motion of fluids. And these laws are purely empirical, they are not derived from microscopic principles. So, these laws are derived from conservation considerations. So, let us first consider the conservation of mass. We know that matter is conserved, it is not locally, matter is conserved. So, it is not suddenly created, neither suddenly destroyed, it is conserved. Okay. So, let us first see what this implies for the flow of a fluid. So, this is mass conservation. So, we consider a volume an arbitrary volume V, and let us ask the question, what is the mass of the fluid contained in this volume. So, the mass of the fluid contained in this volume is the density at any point. So, I have to add up the density at every point inside and I will get the total mass in this volume of fluid. So, this can be calculated by integrating the density, which is a function, remember, of x and of r and t over the entire volume dV. This will give me the mass of the material of the fluid inside this volume element. Now, let us calculate the rate of change of mass inside this volume. So, the rate of change of mass m dot, by dot we mean d by dt, that rate of change, time rate. So, this can be calculated as follows. So, you look at the rate at which the density changes in this point, and this will tell me the rate at which the mass in this small volume element changes, and I can add it up for all the volume elements inside. So, the rate of change of mass is del rho del t integrated over the entire volume. Okay. So, it is basically the time rate of the change of the density integrated over the entire volume. Now, we know that the mass is conserved. So, if the mass inside this goes down, it means that there has to be a flow of mass out of this volume, or if the mass goes up, there has to be a flow of mass into the volume. Okay. And the flow of mass is characterized by a current. So, let us now define the mass current. So, the mass current tells me the flow per unit area at any point J, that is the mass current, and we can define the mass current as the mass density into the velocity. So, this tells me the rate at which the mass is flowing per unit area. If I put a unit area here, it will tell me the mass that will cut across it per in a unit time interval, that is the mass current. So, this is the mass current. Okay. This volume V is capital V, this volume V is small v. Let me put a thing here to make sure that it is distinct. So, this big volume is, this is the entire volume over here, or no, let me put, yeah, okay, that is the big volume over here, and this V is the velocity of this point of the fluid over here. So, to if I want to calculate the mass that is flowing out of this, then I have to integrate the mass current. You see, if the mass flows from here to here, it will not change the mass inside this. The mass will, there will be a change in mass only when it flows out through the surface. So, I have to do a surface integral of the mass current across the surface of this volume, and that will tell me the rate at which the mass is flowing out. Okay. So, m dot, so the surface area is oriented outwards. So, there is going to be a mass. So, m dot is so I can calculate J dot ds across the surface of this volume, and that will tell me the rate at which the mass is flowing out. So, m dot should also be equal to minus this. If the mass is flowing out, the mass has to go down. So, m dot is also equal to minus the flux. This is the entire flux of the mass flux. What we have calculated here is the mass flux across the surface surrounding this volume. Okay. So, we can now equate these two. This tells me the rate at which the mass is changing, this also tells me the same thing, and the conservation of mass tells me that this should be exactly equal to this. So, if I equate these two, what I get okay, before I equate these two, this can be further simplified. So, this using Gauss theorem, I can write this as minus, this will be a surface integral minus the divergence of J dV integrated over this entire volume. This will no longer be a volume, this will be a volume integral integrated over the volume capital V. Okay. So, now we equate these two, and what that tells us is that, so if I equate these two, this should be equal to minus this, because we have the same integral on both the sides. So, what it tells us is that del rho del t plus the divergence of J should be 0, which is what is called the continuity equation, the mass continuity equation. So, from this we arrive at the mass continuity equation and the mass continuity equation is del rho del t plus the divergence of the current. So, plus the divergence of the mass current. The mass current we know is rho into V, this is equal to 0. This is the mass continuity equation. This is the first equation of fluid mechanics. It is a simple consequence of the fact that mass is locally conserved. If I take a small volume anywhere, infinitesimal volume, the mass in that volume is conserved. So, any change in the mass there has to be accompanied by a corresponding outflow or inflow of material, which is the information contained in this equation. Okay. So, this is the conservation of mass. Let us next look at the conservation of momentum. Before going to the conservation of momentum, let me now go back again a little bit. Let us now ask the question, what is this Lagrangian fluid mechanics? In the Lagrangian fluid mechanics, let me come back to this Lagrangian fluid mechanics. In the Lagrangian fluid mechanics, our interest is not in sitting at one point and looking at what happens to the fluid there. Our interest there is to follow the evolution of a single fluid element. So, in the Lagrangian mechanics, as this fluid element flows, it will move from here to here, and one will try to follow the evolution of this, of what happens to this particular fluid element as it goes along. So, we do not sit at a fixed position and see how the fluid changes. You move with the fluid and you study what happens to the properties of the fluid as you move along with that. So, that is the Lagrangian approach to fluid mechanics. So, let us now ask the question. So, this okay, first of all, so let us just look at the density. So, this is the okay, let us look at the density rho. Let me draw the picture. This is a density, this is a fluid element, and we are looking at the density at this point. So, this point is x, it has a coordinate x. So, we are looking at the density field at this point, which is rho x t. Now, let us ask the question, how does the density of this fluid element change? To do that, we look at the same fluid element at a later time. So, at a later time, this fluid element would have moved somewhere. So, if you want to compare the same fluid element at a later time, this you have to see where this fluid element has moved. The value of the density would have changed and it would have also moved to a different place. So, the quantity to look at is rho, and now you have to look at the new position. The new position is x plus v into delta t, and the new time is t plus delta t. So, the fluid element that was at x at the time t has at a later time, after a small time interval delta t, moved, and the motion is going to be the velocity of the fluid element into delta t, that is the movement. Okay. So, this will tell me the density of this fluid element after a time delta t. Okay. So, if I now compare these two, this is what is called the convective derivative. So, when you take a convective derivative, you are essentially following the same fluid element and asking how does its density change. So, this, to calculate this, you have to take the limit of delta t goes to 0, 1 by delta t, and you have to look at the difference of rho x plus v delta t comma t plus delta t minus this rho x t. You have to look at this difference. You have to compare the density of the same volume element at a, which is now at a different position at a slightly later time, with the density of the original thing. Now, you can expand this. This is, it's clear that you can if you expand this in delta t, you will have a time derivative of rho, partial time derivative into delta t. In addition, you will also have a spatial derivative of rho into v delta t. So, this difference will turn out to be, equal to del rho del t plus v dot the gradient of rho. This is what is called the convective derivative. So, this tells you how the density of a fixed fluid element changes in time. So, you have this extra term which occurs because the fluid is moving. And coming back to the mass continuity equation, we see that this mass continuity equation can also be written as d rho dt plus, so one term from here can be now put inside this, has gone inside this, and what remains now is rho into the divergence of V is 0. And if I have a fluid which is incompressible, so let us just talk about an incompressible fluid. Water for most purposes is an incompressible fluid. So, if I have water, I consider a particular volume element of water, when it moves from here to here, its density will not change, it is incompressible for most purposes. So, such a fluid then d rho dt is going to be 0. Okay. So, if a fluid is incompressible, then the divergence of V is equal to 0. In astrophysics, we mainly deal with gases, so the fluid will usually be compressible. But in terrestrial situations like water flowing in a pipe, it is adequate to treat it as an incompressible fluid, and this equation then holds. So, this we just discussed what is a convective derivative. Let us now move over to the conservation of momentum. So, we have seen the consequences of the conservation of mass. We have the mass continuity equation. Let us now look at the conservation of momentum. And to keep the algebra simple, let us look at the only one component of the momentum to start with. So, let us just consider the x component of the momentum. So, let us repeat the same exercise. We have a volume over here, and let us call that volume capital V like this. And let us ask the question, what is the volume of the what is the momentum, the x component of the momentum. So, we want the, let us say this is the x axis. So, we want the x component of the momentum p momentum x, this is what we wish to calculate. So, the x component of the momentum of all the entire fluid here can be calculated by considering first a small volume here. The mass inside the small volume is rho, the velocity is v. So, it is quite obvious that the x component of the momentum is equal to rho into Vx, that is the x component of the momentum of this small volume element. If I integrate this over the entire volume, I will get the x component of the momentum of the total volume. Okay. Now, here I can have two things. The momentum can change. So, if I have I want to calculate p x dot, the rate at which the x component of momentum of this entire volume changes. So, this we know is okay, and the momentum inside this can change due to two reasons. One is it can change because of the flow of momentum out of this volume. There can be a flow of momentum out of this volume. So, that is one thing. So, let us put that. So, this is also equal to minus now what is the momentum current. So, for any quantity we can construct the current by multiplying the quantity with the velocity. For example, for the mass we considered the mass density multiplied with the velocity, we got the mass current. If you want to calculate the x component, the current for the x component of momentum, take the density of the x component of momentum and multiply it with the velocity, you will get the corresponding current. So, for the x component of momentum, the current is going to be rho into Vx into V. That tells me the flux per unit area, that is the momentum x component of momentum current of the x component of momentum. So, I can calculate this by doing a surface integral of rho Vx V dot ds over the surface area of this. So, this term tells me the momentum that is flowing out, but is this the only reason why the momentum of this volume can change? No, the momentum of this of the matter contained in this volume can also change due to external forces. So, I have to also take into account the contribution of external forces. So, the x component of any external forces. So, this also has to be included. Now, let me include this. So, one possibility, let me write down the expression for Fx. So, one possibility is this fluid is a part of a bigger fluid system and the fluid outside will have pressure. Now, pressure we know is, so if it is a Pascalian fluid, if it is a Pascalian fluid, Pascal's law tells us that if I take a fluid and put a solid put a surface element here and ask the question what is the pressure is always normal to it, it is isotropic and it has a value which is P. So, if I now consider this surface element over here, the pressure is going to be normal to the surface. So, the pressure will be in the same direction as the surface and we are interested in only the x component of the pressure. So, and the pressure is going to be acting inwards. So, the force due to pressure we can write down, the force due to pressure is going to be Fx is equal to, it is going to be, so the direction of the force it is going to have a value P, the direction of the force is going to be along the x axis. So, I can write it as the unit vector along the x axis dot ds and it will be acting inward. So, it is going to be this. So, that is the and I have to integrate this over the entire surface. So, that is the total pressure, the force on this due to the pressure from outside, fluid outside. In addition, there may be body forces. For example, this fluid may be experiencing a gravitational acceleration. So, there may be body forces. So, if the acceleration due to that body force is small f, so if this is pressure, these are body forces, example gravity. So, if I consider this unit volume over here and this volume element over here and let us say that the gravitational acceleration is in the x component of the gravitational acceleration is Fx, then the total force on this volume element is Fx into rho, and I integrate this over the entire volume, I will get the total force. So, there is another component, I am writing out the two components, which is the integral, the volume integral Fx into rho into dV. So, we have to now, what we have to do is we have to combine these terms. So, let us do that. So, we have to first take this term over here and this convert everything into volume integral. So, let us first consider this term. This term can be written, let me just write it out here. This term can be written as equal to a volume, it will be a minus a divergence of rho Vx into V into the volume integral, right. So, I am just applying Gauss theorem and simplifying only this term. So, applying Gauss theorem, this is a surface integral. So, this surface integral can be converted into a volume integral. If I convert this into a volume integral, I will have the divergence of this entire thing. So, the divergence of this entire thing is divergence of rho Vx into the vector V and integrated over the entire volume. Okay. This term can also be converted to a volume term. So, again I will apply the Gauss theorem and I will write this as equal to minus a volume integral the divergence of this. So, I have the divergence of P here P into the unit vector I dV. So, I have the divergence of P into I over here. Okay, this is P and into I. So, let me now, I have all the terms are written in terms of volume integrals, let me now combine everything. So, I equate this is the rate of change of the x component of the momentum inside this, I equate this to all the other things that can contribute to the rate of change, and the volume integrals I do not have to bother because they are integrated over the same volume. So, let me just now balance term by term. So, I get del by del t of rho into Vx from here. So, I have that is the first term. Now, this the flux of momentum I can take on to the left hand side and write this as plus the divergence of rho Vx into V, then the pressure so notice that this is the divergence divergence of P into the unit vector I. So, this will only pick up the x component of the derivative of P, nothing else. So, I can write this as this is equal to minus the derivative, the x component of the gradient of P divided by this, and there will be one more term which is coming from here, the body forces, that will be the acceleration due to the body forces into the density. Okay. So, that is the equation that arises from the conservation of linear momentum, one component of the linear momentum. Now, you can very easily see that if I write this out for the y component and the z component, I will get exactly same equations, except that y will be replaced, the subscript will be y and the subscript will be z in the corresponding equations. And I can combine all these three equations, and what I will obtain, you can you can then just write it down straightforward, del by del t rho into the vector v. So, this is only what the x component of that, plus or okay, let us just do this step a little later, sorry, it will be helpful to do it a little later, okay, because otherwise the algebra will get terribly complicated. So, let us just expand this out before we do that. So, let us just expand it out. If I expand it out, what I will get is that, let me expand this out, I will have del by del t of rho into Vx plus Vx del rho del t, that is the first term. Let me expand out the second term. The second term is going to give me, oh sorry. So, there will be two terms, let me write it here. One term is going to be rho del by del t of Vx plus Vx del by del t rho, that is the first term. The second term is going to be divergence of, so this acting on this into these two terms, let me write that, or rather Vx, okay, plus that is the second term. So, I have just expanded out these two terms. The third term and the fourth term remain unchanged. So, let me not write them out. This is equal to the same thing which is here. Now, you apply the mass conservation equation. So, let us go and see what the mass conservation equation is, del rho del t plus the divergence of the current is equal to 0, and you see this, if you combine this with this, it is exactly the same, you take Vx common. So, this is exactly the same. So, this term just cancels out, and so we have this is equal to this, okay, let me write it here, and I can divide throughout by rho. So, if I divide throughout by rho, then I am going to divide, so these two terms cancel out, and I am going to divide throughout by rho. So, the rho will be gone from here, rho will be gone from here, rho will be gone from here, I will be left with a 1 by rho over here. Okay. So, the equation that I get when I do this is del by del t Vx plus this is equal to minus 1 by rho del x of the pressure plus the acceleration due to the body force x component. So, now you can see that if I combine all three components of this equation, if I combine all three components of this equation, so I have Vx, I will have Vy and Vz, I have Vx, Vy and Vz, I will have the x derivative, y derivative and z derivative, I combine them with appropriate unit vectors, then I will be led to a vector equation, and let me write down that vector equation here. So, let me keep this here and let me write down the vector equation. The vector equation then is going to be del by del t of the velocity vector plus is equal to, this is equal to minus 1 by rho, and we have the gradient of p plus the acceleration produced by the sorry, this will be the acceleration vector of the body forces. This equation is called the Euler equation. And this again is a fundamental equation of fluid mechanics. There are small modifications, there is a modification in this equation if we introduce viscosity. So, we have assumed that the fluid that we have does not have viscosity. It is a reasonable assumption on many astrophysical, for many astrophysical situations, particularly on very large scales. There are situations though where viscosity also comes into the picture. You have to then take more terms in this equation. There are other forces that also come into the play, and you, instead of the Euler equation, you have what are called Navier-Stokes equation. So, for many purposes this is adequate. So, let us for the time being let us retain this equation. So, we have the mass continuity equation and then we have the Euler equation. The third equation, which sometimes is important and in many situations we really do not need the third equation. The Euler equation and the mass continuity equation are adequate, but there are situations where you also need to consider the energy conservation. So, to derive the energy conservation equation, let us focus our attention on a particular element of the fluid, a small element, a particular element of the fluid. And the mass inside this small element is rho. So, if this element has unit volume, the mass inside that is rho, that is the mass. So, the rho is the mass per unit volume and if I consider a volume element dV, then rho into dV is the mass. Okay. So, we are going to focus our attention on this. Now, let sigma denote the entropy per mass. So, the entropy inside this of this mass is sigma. Now, from the right. Now, we know that the rate of change of entropy of this volume element, of this mass element, this particular fluid element, we are taking a convective derivative, remember that. Why are we taking a convective derivative? Because when you do thermodynamics, to look at the energy conservation, one has to do thermodynamics, and to do thermodynamics one has to focus one's attention on a particular system, and things should not flow in or out of the system, the matter should not flow in or out of the system. So, you have to focus your attention on a single fluid element and follow it. So, you look at a particular bit of the gas and follow it, follow its motion, see what happens to the energy inside that. Okay. So, that is what we are doing. So, the entropy of this volume of this mass element, if the mass element moves, the entropy contained will remain same unless it actually loses heat. And so, the temperature Tds, the temperature into the change in entropy, rate at which it changes entropy, is equal to minus where L is the heat flow, heat loss, per volume, it is the volume rate of heat loss. And rho is the mass per volume. So, this ratio tells you the heat loss per unit mass. This is the entropy per unit mass, this is the heat loss per unit mass. Okay. So, the entropy can change only if heat is lost or gained. Okay. So, that is what has gone in here. Okay. Fine. Now, the change in entropy can also be related to the change in the internal energy of the system using the first law of thermodynamics. So, we know that d sigma dt T into d sigma T into d sigma dt is equal to, so this is dq, and from the first law of thermodynamics we know that the change in the heat, if a heat flows in or out, sorry, not the change in the flow in the heat gained or lost is equal to the change in the internal energy plus P into dV. Now, what is the volume of this mass that we are considering? The mass is rho, so the volume is going to be 1 by rho. So, mass is, see, the volume per unit mass. So, that is going to be, this is the entropy per unit mass, we are looking at everything per unit mass. This is the entropy per unit mass, this is the internal energy per unit mass. So, we have to also consider the volume per unit mass, and the volume per unit mass is 1 by the density. Density is the mass per unit volume. So, the volume per unit mass is 1 by the density. So, we have also got this. Okay. So, this tells us the rate at which, this relates the change in entropy to the rate at which heat is lost, and this expresses the change in entropy in terms of the change in internal energy and the work done, P dV. Okay. Now, so if you equate these two, what we get then is this term can be written as, okay, what we get is d epsilon dt minus, so this term becomes P by, if I differentiate 1 by rho, I will get 1 by rho square with a minus sign. So, P by rho square d rho, this is equal to minus L dt minus L by rho. Now, I can multiply this this equation throughout with the density, and if I do that, so I multiply this equation throughout with the density, and what I get then is or rather, let me keep it like this, let me keep this equation like this to start with. Now, d rho dt we have worked out already, d rho dt is the convective derivative of the density. So, d rho dt is equal to minus rho, that is the mass continuity equation which we have already considered, okay, written in terms of the convective derivative. So, if you substitute that here, then we get the equation that the energy equation, the energy equation is So, this is the energy equation. It tells us it relates, or you can multiply this throughout by rho if you wish. It essentially relates the rate of change of energy per unit mass to the divergence of the velocity field and the rate at which heat is lost. So, let me conclude today's lecture here. Before we conclude, let me just summarize what we have learnt. We have learnt that in astrophysics quite often it is useful to think of the material making up some object as a fluid, as a continuum which is a fluid, and the equations that governing these fluid were derived starting from different conservation principles. We saw the mass continuity equation that arises because of the mass conservation equation. We then had the Euler equation that arises due to the momentum conservation, and we also worked out the energy conservation equation. In later classes, these shall prove useful in modeling a variety of astrophysical systems. So, this is something that we shall take up in later lectures as we go along in this course.